was so close to being done too. So close. Okay, you know what, guys? That was actually my last slide. So that timed out pretty good. It's gonna crap out. It's a good time to crap it out. So I'm just gonna put this to full screen. So this was the last screen that was up here. It was basically just showing. Can you see?
It actually came up for a second.
You guys are welcome to come up. If you didn't get a look at it when it was up on the screen, you're welcome to come up afterwards. I'll leave that up there for you guys. But this is my last slide. And it basically, as I was saying, these were just used to scan into the production art, and they animated everything usually. But Acme has had tons of these drawings for sale for a long time, and they're really cool. If you actually want to own a piece of animation history and animation art from that series, that's the way to do it. So, as that was my last slide, I'm going to wrap things up and prepare for the Q&A. So, if any of you guys have any questions about this, now's the time. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about the drawings of copies. So that they got later on in WordPress, you have to watch out. Is there any ways to figure out what's your mind?
Provenance is always everything. The question was, is there a way to authenticate the model sheet copies, which get copied and copied and reproduced over and over and over again on the secondary market? Provenance is key, much like prototype toy collecting, is knowing your source, knowing who you're buying from. The other way is, photocopiers. Every time you copy something, there's a reduction in quality. So if it starts to look like you see a little some black granulated in the background, and the lines start to get a little blurry, you know that it's most likely been a copy of a copy of a copy. But know who you're buying from. If you're buying from somebody who deals in a lot of animation art, and they're just saying, yeah, we got these all from the animation house, and these are like the original copies, that's it's pretty much provenance and knowing your source for it. Anybody else?
Mike had on, how bad is the forgery?
There's not really a whole lot of fakes out there, especially for Joys and Ewoks cartoons. In fact, I'd be surprised if I heard of any fakes for that. The question was, are there any fakes, and forgeries of animation art? Stuff like Disney cells, especially like the classics Disney cells. There are different things you're going to want to be aware of there. When it comes to Star Wars collecting, I've never heard of a fake cell being offered at all. There's just, with master and key cell setups, there's just so few of them out there anyways that, if you're buying again from a trusted source or knowing where it's coming from, it'll be pretty safe.
What's the last thing you added to your collection? Where's the money?
The last thing, some of us have been tracking a particular inventory for quite a while, and the last few pieces that I've added, I actually managed to get on eBay. But the story is kind of interesting. My good friend James and I, who have been, kind of going through this together, we found when Royal Animated Art, they had taken all of their inventory and they had shifted it to a guy called Joe Cesaro, and he owned a company called Sunday Funnies Animation, and James and I found his stuff years ago, and we were like, oh man, we found all these sellers, we were so stoked, and then we got the prices, and we were like, are you kidding me? I mean, the prices he was asking for were really high, even for the time, but they were great. They were all the master key cell setups, they came with layouts, they came with backgrounds, they came with storyboards, but ultimately we decided it was too much to be passed, we let him go, and we kind of started kicking ourselves over the years, and then we decided, hey, let's contact this guy, let's see if he's still around. No, he's gone. He just, he literally disappeared. So did his inventory. We couldn't find him at all. And then a few years, probably 2 years ago, some lady on eBay started selling some cells that looked really, really familiar, and we started going through our files, and we were like, oh man, this is the stuff. This is his inventory. So I bought quite a few really great pieces off her, and then she disappeared, and she was gone. All the inventory was gone again. Like, are you kidding me? Where's this stuff going? So then 2 years ago, we were at Comic-Con, and another dealer who's like a major animation dealer, he's pretty much the source for all the droids and robots animation cells that are on eBay right now. He bought out all of her inventory, and when I was at Comic-Con a couple years ago, I just managed to like go through all of his folders, and he just had folders and folders and folders of stuff, and I bought out some really cherry pieces. So that's probably the last Star Wars animation art that I bought recently. It doesn't turn up very often, especially like the really good stuff. I mean, you gotta be, you know, I did an interview about this for StarWars.com too, and one of the things that I said is, you've gotta be prepared to be patient and to have the money ready at any given time for something to drop, because you just don't know when something's gonna turn around. If you're looking for, you know, the master and key cell setups, it could literally be years before they fall into your lap. So you just kinda gotta wait it out, keep checking with different sources, and you know, if something turns up, then you gotta be prepared to spend the money on it. Yeah. The question is, what do you pay on average for these? If it's for the holiday special, I mean, for a master key cell setup, I've seen them sell as high as $10,000. I don't think that in this market they probably do that anymore. They probably get quite a bit lower. I've paid as high as $450 for them, but they were also kind of, you know, they weren't really advertised for what they were, and there was only a couple of us that were bidding on them. I think if they were hitting the open market, some of those master key cell setups that I was showing before, I think anywhere between $500 and $1,000 would probably be a reasonable price now. Anybody else?
What's the most expensive piece that you've bought in your collection?
My animation art collection or my collection? We'll go with the animation art collection. You don't know about the other one. The animation art collection, you know, honestly, because animation art is more kind of a side focus for me, I haven't really like invested as much as I probably could or would like to. I tend to have my things in my hand in a lot of expensive hobbies. I collect, you know, G.I. Joe toys, prototypes, and production, you know, packaging art. I collect Star Wars prototypes. I collect original comic art. So I mean, my money's getting spent thin. So I think probably about $450 is probably the most, maybe $500 is the most I've spent on a Star Wars animation. Anyone else? No, that sounds about it. Like I said, oh, sorry, go ahead. I mean, that's a loaded question. I mean, we've got, you know, 75 years of animation history that you can be looking at. Disney stuff in particular, you know, old Disney stuff is very expensive. Know your dealers, trust your sources. There are a lot of really great animation houses out there who sell a lot of the older Disney art, but it's very expensive. My friend Tommy and I have been looking at Disney art quite a bit, and drooling and wishing we had the funds to put into it. There's some amazing concept pieces, like Disney concept pieces for this stuff, and they're like $15,000. It's just an old. I read a story from some guys, and back in the 80s when animation art was really big in the late 80s, early 90s, and it's kind of died a little bit. But you know, then it was all the Disney and the Warner Brothers stuff that people were really super into and excited about. And this guy was telling me they'd go to these auctions, and in the back of the auction, you know, these guys would wait till all the cherry pieces would come out, and it was basically George Lucas's buyer and Michael Jackson's buyer. And they would sit in the back, and they'd just sit there, and they'd raise their cards, and they'd outbid each other over and over again. The days of those prices have gone down a lot. I mean, who's going to compete with George Lucas for buying animation art? It's kind of got unlimited funds there, same with Michael Jackson. But you know, the days of those, you know, $150,000 Disney pieces are probably long gone. But, you know, what's nice about it, there's kind of been a bit of a resurgence in animation art collecting. All those old guys who were really into the old art, they're not really around anymore. They kind of dropped off a little bit. A lot of us younger guys who are, you know, late 20s, early 30s, we're getting into we were the 80s generation. It was 80s cartoons that were half-hour toy commercials that like led us to be here today. Like we're all like toy nerds. This is what we love. So a lot of us have gone, and we're now we want to get the cells and the cartoons that we love as kids. So there's a bit of a resurgence in animation art collecting. They don't quite go for the prices that they used to. But there's starting to be a lot more interest. So yeah, just keep an eye out. You know, pick a series that you're interested in, and do a little bit of research, see what's out there. My biggest thing is if you're looking for something that's got an original background as well as the original cells, try to make sure the background matches. More often than not, there's a lot of original backgrounds that have survived, but they're paired with cells that don't actually match. Sometimes the image